Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where our incredible community of Israel briefers meet every single Monday to Thursday for those top stories making headlines here in Israel. As always, we are brought to you by these guys, Lay of the Land. And I just want to thank you all. I don't have my tea with me today, but I've got some water. I want to thank you all for your lovely well wishes. As you can hear, I still have the lurgy, feeling a little bit under the weather. But I never miss an opportunity to meet with you guys. It is a Thursday, which means that our weekly edition of Mensch and Moron of the week is coming up. As has become the trend, we seem to have a lot of nominations for the morons of the week, which is a sad indication of the world and where we're at. We, of course, have our audience question. It comes from the USA. But before that, we're going to take a look at those top stories. It is day 433. We still have 100 hostages being held in absolute inhumane conditions inside the Gaza Strip. So let's get into those top stories. I'm joined by my good friend, the neighborhood dog, but he's become kind of a thing on the show. So I'm going to have to find some way to credit him in a certain way. So let's get on with our top story, and we're still looking at events in Syria. Earlier today, both Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterated that Israeli soldiers are in the buffer zone for one specific reason. Following the abandonment of the positions on the Syrian side of Mount Hermon, of the Golan Heights, it effectively collapsed the 1974 separation of forces agreement and left a vacuum. And if you've been following the events in Syria, you will know that the rebels are made up of various different groups, some of them extremely hostile. In fact, they're ISIS. They are the worst of the worst jihadis who will stop at nothing to see anybody who doesn't follow their ideology, Christians, Jews, and Muslims, slaughtered. Now, of course, we won't tolerate a hostile entity on our borders, and so we have moved swiftly into that buffer zone to prevent that vacuum being filled. Now, both the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs have reiterated to other world leaders that this is a temporary defensive measure until such time a satisfactory agreement is reached. Now, most people understand why we're there, appreciate why we're there, except for some far left politician or MP from Spain who accused Israel of committing genocide in Syria. Now, let me reiterate. Israel is striking military targets in Syria. We have not killed any civilians. There have been no reports of any civilians killed as a result of Israeli airstrikes. You can't just apply the word or label genocide to absolutely everything, because once everything is genocide, then nothing is genocide. Okay, rant over. In the meantime, the Israeli Air Force continues to strike Assad military assets. We, of course, don't want them getting into the hands of terrorist entities that could use them against Israel or any other country in the world. We can't forget what happened with the fall of Gaddafi in Libya. What happened to those weapons? It created global havoc. So right now, Israel is making sure that our immediate security is taken care of. And as we have said to countries around the world, we really are on the vanguard of the war between civilizations. A terrorist opened fire on a bus traveling on a West Bank highway in the early hours of this morning, spraying at least 23 bullets, injuring several, including a 12-year-old boy who was critically injured and later succumbed to his wounds. The IDF conducted a widespread manhunt, but the terrorist turned himself in. Of course, there are no words to adequately describe the cold-blooded slaughter of a 12-year-old child. Our thoughts and our prayers are with his family, with his loved ones. May his memory be for a blessing, and as we would say in Hebrew, Hashem yankum damo, may God avenge his blood. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Hamas for the first time is willing to accept a presence of IDF in the Gaza Strip temporarily after the fighting has ended. Of course, we haven't heard any comments coming from Israeli officials. They have said that a list of hostages to be released in the initial first phase of a potential ceasefire that fulfill what they call the humanitarian category has been handed to Israel. Now, Israeli officials in the last couple of days have denied that or not commented, but this report seems to be adamant out there in the media. Now, Israel's pushing back a little bit, saying that all of the hostages who are alive fulfill the conditions of the humanitarian group. Those would be men, women, children, and anybody who is critically ill or gravely injured. And I think, and I agree, it appeals or it applies certainly to all of the hostages that we believe are still alive. We believe that there are still about 36 hostages, we hope maybe more, that are still alive. Meanwhile, the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is in Israel. He has just met with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Amongst the many topics they discussed, of course, the situation in Syria and the imperative of ensuring that we reach a deal to release the hostages. As President-elect Donald Trump said, he wants those hostages released before he takes office on the 20th of January. He has appointed his own envoy to work to secure the release of the hostages, and he says otherwise there will be hell to pay. And finally, Ireland. Oh, Ireland. And I know we've got Irish supporters out there, and I cannot thank you enough for standing with Israel. But the Irish government yesterday voted to give their approval for Ireland to join South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Now, what Ireland are asking the court to do is to expand their interpretation of what constitutes genocide committed by a state. Now, I just want to say something. The ICJ former president explained the ruling, saying that basically they haven't found Israel guilty of genocide. There's no evidence that points to genocide, but Israel must guard against a possible genocide. I think that's fairly simple to understand. The terminology genocide is very, very specific and leans towards intention and not numbers. War is horrific. War is brutal, and I'm looking very, very forward to a release in imminent days coming from military experts who have been in Gaza, who have looked at the evidence and are saying that the numbers of women and children killed, as trotted out by many, are nowhere near what Hamas is telling the world. And they say their sources are Hamas, who are actually keeping meticulous records. Now, where have we heard the keeping of meticulous records before? I'll give you two guesses, but I just want to say something. Ireland, Amnesty International, and whoever it is out there that wants to redefine things like genocide, apartheid, colonization, so that it fits your particular agenda or narrative against Israel, you can't just do that because you are pushing a narrative and an agenda. The great human rights icon and former prisoner of conscience and national treasure to us here in Israel, Natan Sharansky, said once that you can determine anti-Semitism through the lens of 3 Ds. Demonization, the demonization of Israel and the Jewish people. Double standards, the application of double standards to Jews and to the state of Israel. And here we see one standard by which we judge genocide for others, and one that we want to redefine to fit Israel, and delegitimization, the calling into question Israel's legitimacy as the nation state of the Jewish people. So I trust my Irish friends to share that information with as many of your countrymen as possible. So before we get to the Mensch and the Moron of the week, let's take a look at the audience question, and it comes from Rob in Virginia, USA. He says, are people starting to return home in the north? Excellent question, Rob. I think we're seeing a slow trickle of people returning to their homes in the north. I think many are waiting to see how long this ceasefire can hold for. It is holding for the last couple of weeks, but I think they want to be absolutely sure that it is safe. Not everyone has returned yet. A lot of people still don't feel safe, and a lot of people don't have homes to return to. This is something the media is not reporting. How many homes, how many communities have been decimated by those Hezbollah rockets, drones, and anti-tank missiles. And now, for the moment you have all been waiting for, drum roll, the Mensch and the Moron of the week. So I want to take the opportunity to put my choice of Mensch of the week. And my Mensch of the week goes to all of you out there, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, whoever you are, that are standing steadfastly with Jewish communities around the world, with the state of Israel in this, our darkest hours since the Holocaust. For Jewish communities around the world, from South Africa to Australia, from the United Kingdom to France to the USA and everywhere in between, we have seen an astronomical rise in the levels of anti-Semitism, hate speech, threats, intimidation. Not a day goes by without another horrific incident around the world. This week, a lot of focus has been on Australia. In recent weeks, we've looked at Amsterdam, we've looked at the United States, Canada, South Africa, everywhere. It is a time in our history where many Jews around the world are terrified to be identified as Jewish because they could face real physical harm. And I want to thank every single one of you who is standing with us, who is praying for us, who is showing solidarity in some way, and who is pushing back against the lies and the hate. There aren't enough words of gratitude to express how thankful we all are for everything that you are doing for us. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, and God bless you. And now on to the Moron of the week, and this was almost unanimous. A close runner-up was David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom. But today's Moron of the week is the Albanese government of Australia. Australia, a place, as I've said numerous times this week, that I have a great affinity for. And following the horrific fire at the Adas synagogue last Friday, where tennis elbow Albanese managed to play tennis and scuttle off quickly when he visited the remains of the synagogue, we have seen a significant hostility towards the state of Israel, which is also contributing to the climate of hatred against Jews in Australia, to the point where we've had members of the Labour Party as well as opposition members calling on members of the Albanese government, in particular his Foreign Secretary Penny Wong, to tone down their rhetoric. And now we have reports that the government is very quietly denying visas to any Israeli that serves in the IDF. Now, military service here in Israel is compulsory. All Israelis of a certain age have to serve in the IDF. I haven't served in the IDF. I made Aliyah at an age where I was considered too old to have served. But denying visas based on people's service in the IDF means that basically you are denying the rights of Israelis to visit Australia. This is discriminatory, this is grossly anti-Semitic, and it's a very, very worrying trend. It is not my place to interfere in the domestic policies of any other country except my own here, or to make recommendations about elections, parties and candidates. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that come the elections in Australia next year, I know that our communities there and our allies will make the right decision to see relations between Israel and our once greatest mate Australia get back on track. And that's it from me for the week. Guys, please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottle's site. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. We are on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, on X at Lay of the Land 5. If there are any I'm missing, please don't hold it against me. And guys, Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye for now.